The first video on there is a video on slope. Take some time if you feel good about your answers there on slope we talked about earlier. You got those answers, but there's a video and you can just scrub back to the end of it, just check your answers, that kind of thing. I'm going to go through these ones with the distance formula now and try to make sure of a couple things. First thing is, guys, you gotta do the distance formula correctly. You have 2 points, and those 2 points are x and y, and then they call them x1 and y1, x2 and y2, just subscripts. From there, there's a formula you use. It's d equals the square root of x1 minus x2, or, guys, if you want to, you can go x2 minus x1. The order that you take those x's in, really, just like when dealing with slope, doesn't matter. What matters is that if you take the second x first, then you have to take the second y first. Okay, and then in the middle is plus. Okay, I can't do it this way. I've got to make sure I say y2 minus y1 squared. Now from there, let me suggest to you guys, do them the same way every time. So when I got x2 minus x1 squared and y2 minus y1 squared, I do them the same way in that I substitute, then I combine my like terms, I square it, add together, and simplify. Let's see if you can see what I'm talking about here. So in the first problem, I go d equals, I take and I subtract my x's. So d equals the square root of x1 minus x2 squared. Well, that ends up being plus. The reason it ends up being plus in the middle there is because the formula is minus, so when I have a minus, a negative, that's plus. So in the middle is a plus sign again, 6 minus 3 squared. And even if that was 3 minus 6 squared and I got a negative answer, I would still end up with a positive. So here I did my substitution. As I suggest that every time. Do your substitution, then combine your numbers, and that gives you 0 squared plus 6 minus 3 is 3 squared. And then at that point is what I was talking about just a little while ago when I said, guys, this is nothing more than an a squared plus b squared equals c squared problem. Because it's 0 plus 9, then the square root of 9 is 3. Now, is that number always going to simplify? No. Sometimes it's going to be tougher than that. Over here in number 8, again, it's similar to it because I have the same number right there. So negative 8 minus a negative 8 is negative 8 plus 8. And then negative 3 minus 7. Here's 1 that it happens. You need to make sure you understand what's going on right here. So this is 0 squared plus negative 10 squared. Guys, it really doesn't matter that that's a negative 10 in the distance formula because of the squared part. Now, some of you guys don't feel comfortable or confident enough in what you're doing to know that negative 10 squared is 100. So you go run into a calculator, and when you go run into that calculator, you put in negative 10 without parentheses around it and tell it to square. When you do that, some of these calculators that we use cannot tell the difference between negative 10 squared with parentheses and negative 10 squared without parentheses. But the ones that can and do it according to my dear Aunt Sally and the order of operations, you would square that first. Well, that would give you a negative 100. But that's what I keep trying to get you to see is in these problems, because that has parentheses around it, that should always be a positive right there. Both of these numbers will always give you positive answers. If they don't, we need to take a close look at what you did. And so I have the square root of 100, and the last step is to simplify. The square root of 100 is 10. Now, look at this. You need to hear this. The distance of this one is 10. The distance of this one is 3. This might be sides of a quadrilateral. Because a quadrilateral would have 4 sides that weren't congruent. If opposite sides were congruent and you had a 90-degree angle right there, I might have a rectangle. I might have a square if it was 4 congruent sides. If it was 4 congruent sides and I had perpendicular sides, I had 2 sides that were perpendicular to one another, that would be a square. You'd be a major mathematical stud if you remembered what 4 congruent sides without a 90-degree angle is. What's something that doesn't have it? Okay, circle would be all the same. There you go. Good one. Trapezoid is 2 sides are parallel, 2 sides aren't parallel. So if I had a figure that had 2 sides that were parallel and 2 sides that weren't parallel, that would be a trapezoid. If you have 2 pair of parallel sides, that's a parallelogram. And you can tell all of that stuff from this right here. Okay, here we go. D equals start them. Again, guys, start them out the same way every time. 2 minus 8. So I go 2 minus 8 squared plus 2 minus a negative 3 squared. So this gives me negative 6 squared plus 5 squared. And I was walking around. Somebody back there in the back said, this is 36 plus 25, I heard. That's exactly right. So I've got square root of 36 because it's going to be positive, plus 25 is square root of 61. Okay, and then the square root of 61 doesn't simplify, so that's your answer. Okay, problem number 10 is 3 on the square root of 5. Problem number 11 is the square root of 26. Problem number 12 is square root of 65. Do I need to keep going doing it? 10 is 3 on the square root of 5. So I get negative 1 plus 7, negative 2 minus 1. So that's 36 plus, I should write this the way I said to do it. This is 6 squared plus negative 3 squared. So that's 36 plus 9 gives me square root of 45. The answer is 3 on the square root of 5. The answer here is the square root of 26, and the answer over here is the square root of 65. Right, good?